I expressed my opinion about how much more there should be in PhD a while ago. I think I shocked them.
What is your opinion?
I think.
The rate we're going?
And then, I mean, you have to remember, we've got probably 100 people there that's giving feedback, and then there's some that's giving them money to repair and so right there, I think it's probably doing that stuff.
Yeah.
Once it's done,
They met with the community.
yeah, but that's what they're gonna do multiple meetings.
Oh,
The next meeting, I think, is downstairs on the 10th of November at 5:30. So I want to hear what they're gonna present, so I'm.
We'll speak loud.
Oh,
November 10th?
I'm November 10th.
High as I can get.
Yeah, I wanted to go to one of those.
I still can't hear.
I can, yeah.
Well,
You
that's
didn't
a-
miss much.
Oh, the first one?
I went to one Odin.
Uh-huh.
You met at the door, the guy with the blown up map. Do you reside in this area? No, I own property. Then you can't come until 6 o'clock.
Well, that was true. Well, not me, eh?
Squash that right now. No, that is true, Don.
I know
That
it
is
is, I know it happened, when I squashed it. But no, that is not per the open meeting laws to say that, you can't do that. And
Oh,
I talked with the committee, and I told them, no uncertain terms, you can't do that. So,
There were people that,
But they turned away.
yeah, there were
Turned away.
people who went away.
and then they got into a red Ford sedan and drove away.
Yeah.
I wasn't allowed to get back until 6. I didn't see you there, Don.
Well,
Totally wrong. And I went to Dan McDonald, he said, you walk in there right now. And I said, well, tell you what, you call your staff, you tell them.
all right.
Look around.
All right, November 10th.
All right.
November 10th, here.
You want this, you can have this white space.
No. I was just looking for paper because usually everybody, you rest on the floor.
Right there.
You work out all the way in your cocktail shorts.
How many people are there on each committee?
It varies.
We started out with 9 on each committee, 2 alternates. So it varied over the committees, some lost a couple of members.
Did everybody get copies?
Because everybody's closing in on the.
I don't want
final.
to.
I doubt it.
Oh,
No, no, you're
Very-
fine.
Committee
oh,
members, they
yeah.
I thought I could speak in one more.
take way too much time.
It's about 20. I'm glad for it.
What are you doing?
I was just told.
I'm on the.
Oh, away from the announcement.
I am sorry.
Depriving us of fun.
So this is your last meeting then?
Yeah. I decided I just love working on this home plan.
Did you think what the calendar there was right?
Now you get a little,
What
how
Sally
many?
done was right or wrong?
All right, well, it's 6 o'clock. It is
No, if I stop.
October 8th, and we're calling the Sagle Area Planning Order.
Just a second, so we can make sure we're live on YouTube. Sorry, Juan.
No,
Are you all, are we good to roll? Okay, thank you.
Get to, roll call.
Juan,
Yes. Right.
sorry, should I say the last name too? I don't want to push you.
No. First name.
First name's fine? Thanks, Juan.
Yes.
Dave?
Here.
Brett?
Here.
Seth?
Here.
Mark?
Here.
Ron?
Yes.
Jeanette? And then Joe.
All right.
Joe is on his way up.
That was on his way up?
Hey,
Joe, nice.
Never mind, I have one.
Yeah, I don't.
I have one too.
I do have one.
Wish I would have known about the planning department's plan to go from 2 acre minimums and 1.5 acre minimums down to 1 acre minimums before we settled the Sagle neighborhood plan.
I'm sure like everything we talked about, that everything go up before we're gonna review everything. I'm sure.
Nice, I know. Yeah.
Oh, we're doing roll call, so I'm here. All right. Here. Announcement. Dave, do you have an announcement you want to share?
Yeah, I've been appointed, and I've accepted an appointment on the planning and zoning commission. So this will be my last meeting with the Sagle group. Sagle group, sorry, I have Sagle in front of me. I guess the bylaws say I can't be a member of both, but I was gonna resign anyway before I do that, just to manage my own time. So I wanted to come on one night. Everybody, it's been a pleasure to work with you all, and I look forward to seeing what you bring forward.
It's your last lick.
Yeah.
All right. So I just passed around the meeting minutes for thoughts. Everybody have a chance to take a look at them?
Yep.
Or any changes?
I'll make a motion.
All right. You want a second?
I'll second.
Motion to accept. Red Arm is seconding it. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, we are good. So, man, where did you leave off?
Yeah, so before I jump into the action items, Ann Wilder is here, and she had proposed, well, we didn't have a meeting last month because we didn't have a forum, but she would like to do a presentation on telecommunications. I circulated the PowerPoint, and during the email chain, the committee agreed to make a vote today to add this as a potential action item to the beginning, to say if you'd like to hear a presentation on telecommunications. Going back in the meeting minutes last year, it was voted by this committee that you wouldn't hear any more presentations on telecommunications, so it'll take an official vote to put it on the agenda for today. So with that said, I'm going to open it up to the committee to have that discussion and decide if someone would like to make a motion to allow for the presentation, either at today's meeting, she is here, or next month if you don't want to hear it today.
So, last year when we did talk about it, I think, we had little information that we had at that time, that we made, we spoke. And, did anybody get to see look at any of the information? It was kind of, we had a lot more information. So we'll entertain any motions to bring this up to vote.
I would move that we
How long would the presentation be?
Ann had said in her email chain to me that it would be a 20-minute presentation.
we ask a lot of questions, it takes a little long, for sure.
I feel like with this committee and how many questions we always ask and how long it takes us to get through stuff, if we want to reopen it, I think we should do it before and have it on the agenda for next month.
No one seconds my motion, I don't think.
Well, if you want it, you can.
Well, you have to have a second before you even discuss, so. But this, seconding the motion doesn't make it mean that it's gonna pass, it just means you get to discuss it.
Who's there? Okay, so we have no second. Good guys for the last second, so anybody want to entertain a motion for next month?
Well, has anything changed since we decided not to talk?
So I did a little bit of research, we're gonna have to discussion, I did a little bit of research, and I have not been able to find any indication that the prohibition in the 96 Telecommunication Act has been repealed. In fact, there was a court case that we decided in August by the Ninth Circuit that basically left most of the FCC's regulatory structure for 5G in place. They did have some problems with the language in the act about regulating based on aesthetic considerations. They said it was vague and some other issues with how it compared to other standards in the act. So they remanded it back to the FCC, which is a nice way of saying they sent it back to the FCC and said try to write some better language around that. So I still believe that the prohibition that exists on state and local governments regulating based on environmental safety considerations is in place. Even if it wasn't, I would also suggest that I don't think there's any reason that I can see why this should be regulated any differently in Sagle than the rest of Bonner County. In other words, what I'm suggesting is it should be an issue that's dealt with at the county level, if it's dealt with at all. Because I think it should be regulated uniformly. And frankly, in this group, we don't have the expertise. I'm not sure the county does either, not trying to be specific with anybody there, but at least at the county, if they chose to bring in some outside expertise, they can do that.
I do want to say that 5G is considerably different from even 4G. And there's a lot more EMFs involved and a lot more consideration for health issues with 5G. That said, I'm not sure we in Sagle, where I live, are looking at any 5G.
I'm still waiting for 4G. I'm still waiting for 3G where I live. So.
But it could be an issue along the highway. And
it could be, but I'd also say that it's incorrect to say there is more electromagnetic radiation. There is, happens in different frequency bands.
Kind. That's more dangerous.
That's very, very debatable. You can find scientific papers on both sides of the issue. And it's actually in a frequency range where what's called path losses, which are the amount of that energy decreases as you move further away from the source, are much higher than with 3G, 4G.
And that's why people are so concerned about 5G, because they're talking about cameras in every street corner. And,
well,
I mean, not cameras.
That's why the technical term is base stations, because you would locally call them a tower, but the base stations have to be at closer spacing because the path loss is so high because the energy falls off so much greater than in the 3G, 4G bands. But at the end, what it means is the electromagnetic energy that's experienced by the individual at the end from the base station is similar. So, I mean, this just begins in a very short way to illustrate how complex this issue gets because it's technical, it's legal, and there's all sorts of health and biological and epidemiological issues. And that's why I say the 8 of us don't have the expertise to do that in my opinion.
It takes us a long time to make a decision too.
Yeah.
Well, that,
Well, I went back and reviewed remember the paper we got from Star or wherever it was that got theirs, they had a 110-foot tower that was going to put in town. And the main person who was opposed to it was concerned that EMS were going to harm her husband and else. And when the company came back, the tower company came back, their only thing that they said was that 186 law, statute, whatever it is, we did not allow for health issues.
well, that's correct. Let's get back to discussion if we're going to have this on the
And I have one other point, if I could, before Mark's point. Because before I retired, I basically made my living making PowerPoint presentations. And my rule of thumb is 3 minutes a slide. That's a 58 slide presentation. So I don't think it's gonna happen in 20 minutes, no matter how many questions the group asks or doesn't ask. So I would just suggest, I guess we're not gonna do it tonight, but we talk about how much time the group wants to allow for this discussion. Because I think it's gonna be much more than 20 minutes. That's my suggestion.
I'd like to ask a question of our presenter, and that is, what do you anticipate us being able to do?
Part of it is, it's really what I'm trying to do is educate. There have been changes since the 1996 law came out. There's been 3 court rulings in the last year and 13 months that give localities much more power in regulating how the where and how the towers are put up. The output is one thing. Operations was never part of the 1996 Telecom Act, and people have been misled about that. And that's part of the education. So whether you want to put something into the plan that you're writing up, I know Scully Valley has put something in their plan to keep the small cell towers out away from residential districts, and that's kind of the area that we're leaning towards. Is we want to reduce the amount of output, and when he talks about the small towers putting out less, and that's why they need to travel, but what they don't mention is that they're not taking the big towers down. They're adding these on top. So Jeanette is perfectly correct when she says they're piling more waves on top of more waves, and they do harm people with Alzheimer's.
Is there any way we can get a look at what Sagle Valley wrote in their plan?
Sure. It's on the website.
Their plan is on the website.
Because, I mean, if there's not much we can do about it.
Theirs is real brief. They just said, 5 miles from 5 miles from a home, and but they're not talking about cell towers in general. They're talking about these small cell towers that they want to put in every neighborhood. And I cover all of this in the PowerPoint. And one of the things that I've done for this PowerPoint, I know that normally it would take 3 minutes if I read the whole thing, but some of these slides are just links to studies, and I kind of go through them pretty quickly. I pointed out to you, I've made up a printout so that you can follow it, and then I know that Amanda sent everybody a copy. If you want to be able to go to the links, you can go to the slide, and of course, once you have a printout, then you can say, okay, this is a slide that has a link on it, and if I want to read the study, I can go to that link. And so there's
So we can look at your presentation online, is that what you're saying?
It's in your email.
it's in your emails, yeah.
Using it, try.
Well, okay, so what I've done here is it's not online. It's it's as an attachment. It was sent out. And if you scroll through the attachment, if you know what pages you're looking for, which is why I have these handouts, so you can make a note. Okay, this is where there's an internet link, and I can go look this up. So you look for the page, and then you can click on the link and then go and read the study, if that's what you want to do. But a lot of the information is just knowing that it's out there. The people who provided me with these slides are the scientists for WireTech. They've done the research.
I did some research on the last group.
Yeah, do we just want to hear the presentation at this point? We're 15 minutes into the meeting.
Yeah,
Okay.
How do you guys feel?
Well, first of all, Mark, you had while I'm sympathetic for you taking the time to come up here, but
I don't mind having that.
the venue is going to be, I think, as I said in the email, mechanic issues, because if this is related to public health and safety, this is a countywide issue, not necessarily a cemetery issue.
Everything that's in our plan is a countywide issue. And we get to say what we want for our part.
If it really involves public health and safety. If you're on county commissioners to say, hey, this is something that's dangerous for Sagle, but not dangerous for everyone else. Mr. Chairman, is there a motion on the table? Right now, there's
Second.
first one died, we're looking at a motion for our November meeting right now.
Is there a motion on the floor?
No, there's
No.
nothing. So,
I move that we look at it next week, next month, I mean. I think this is important for us to look at first.
So you're making a motion for next month?
Yeah, that we look at it next month.
Okay, so then it's up for a second.
Doug Gunner will second that.
okay.
So now we get to have our discussion that we just had for 20 minutes.
Yeah, I'm inclined, if there's nothing that we can do, nothing's changed since the last time we said no, I'm inclined to say.
What she said,
There's been 3 court
Well,
cases.
I looked at, I looked
It's
at, I looked at a lot of the people that presented stuff, that wrote papers.
We made a motion, this is next one.
I researched.
Mr. Chairman, with the previous question. Thank you.
We are, so we have a second on the motion for next month, so we had discussion. We know what we want to do, so let's put it to a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
Nay. Change the vote. Do that, right?
Oh, I see. Okay, so we won't be addressing the topic.
So do you want the handout?
Would you guys like to take her handout anyway?
The handout, you can leave there if somebody is interested in.
Yeah, can we leave them and make you grab them on their way out?
And then,
Take all that.
and then what if I don't say it, I won't.
And that's-
Okay.
section.
People that took the paperwork, and there were psychiatrists, they listed themselves as MDs, PhDs, but their field of expertise wasn't in the field of what they were writing the papers on.
I didn't have time to go research all that, but I do know that there have been, it's been 25 years since that 1986 law.
All right, well,
Certainly. learn
So,
that-
Mr. Chair, what are we moving on to?
we are moving on to
15 years.
chapter 9, land use element, I believe. Amanda was gonna pick it up from there.
All right, guys, so I switched the agenda around this month. I felt like well, it's the same agenda you got, I didn't amend it, but nobody called me out on it, so I'm gonna explain myself. So we've really petered out on trying to figure out these descriptions. We've just gone rounds and rounds and rounds. And so with one of my other committees, we did this, and when we finally pulled out the map and tried to put pen to paper, everything became super apparent. So what I want to start with today, if the committee's okay with it, is to put pen to paper, and I have blank maps that we can hand out. I thought markers, which feel silly, but it really does help. And I'd like to get an idea of what you guys want, so that I can go to our GIS department and start to digitize something that we can edit together as a group. So hopefully, this is okay with everybody. It's gonna be, I think we would just go one land use designation to the other. You'll probably find the first 3 are really easy because we give them mileage boundaries, so we don't even need to draw anything. What we really need to do is figure out what those rural zones look like. Is everybody okay with this? To switch gears and move away from the description and start looking at maps.
So decide where these places are supposed to be.
Go on the map, yeah. And then it's okay if we don't match our descriptions, if we decide through this process, we're like, this makes no sense, we need to put this boundary here, that's how we adjust the descriptions. And so I think we need to approach this in reverse, because we've literally spent like 3 months on the rural description and we haven't even touched rec yet. So maybe if we figure out where rec and resort is supposed to go, we can devise the description. So I'm gonna start passing these down that way. Now, I gave almost everyone laptops. I'm really sorry that we're short of laptops today. What I did is I logged you into our internal map. We can look at wetlands, we can look at slope, we can look at all the layers that we have here in the committee. Oh, yeah, and so my screen is shared up there. It's a little backwards, but I think with the computer in front of you, we're all just gonna be looking at the same map and maybe we can figure this out. So what I'd like to do is start with the easy descriptions. I printed out your plan so that it's in front of you. The first description we have is the industrial description. And what it says is that the industrial zone shall occur along US Highway 95. And that it cannot exceed a quarter mile of US Highway 95. So maybe we can start with where you imagine the industrial zone is. And if you want to look at what the current zoning is, you can open up your maps and click it on and click it off and figure out what those boundaries are, and you can start to draw those on there. Yes. So let me click on my map here. Let me zoom in to Highway 95. So the map is behind you. I apologize, Mark, because it's a little bit in the back for you guys. So what we have is there's like this little stack of what looks like square sheets up on the right-hand corner. If you click on that, no.
For left hand, we don't have them.
Is it okay? Ryan? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I thought.
So does everybody see that layer list while we get this one rolling?
Mm-hmm. That's what she's talking about. No, not that. To the left. To the left. To the left. No. See right here?
Of course, Mark's like, this is where, I only have the layer list.
I know, huh?
You don't have the layer list?
I have the layer list.
Then you was looking at zoning or current comp plan?
So ideally, we'd be looking at comp plan because
Right.
it shows what it could be. And so that's still in the zoning drop down. So if you drop down, there's like a little arrow and you click on that and drop down those layers. There's one that says land use and there's one that says zoning. And so you'll click on the land use one.
It is in some cases, but
Is the zoning land all one word? All one thing? That's what I have.
this is blank stuff.
Land use plan is the comp plan, and then zone is the zone.
Oh, on the layer list, I'm going down and I see zoning land use.
Right.
And I just.
See, I think it's a
click on
comp one.
that. What's the top one?
Well, there's several buttons. Once you hit the drop-down box, and then it gives you multiple. That's how I remember it.
It just says layers. And then it has land permit density.
Well, since you guys all have a laptop, is anyone willing to share laptops? So these guys can share one that works. I mean, I got it. We're trying to, oh, we're gonna hook up the rest of these.
I know,
Amanda?
I know about this map, I can give you guys this one. Studied it before.
It's funny because they tried all of these and they were working.
Well, Doug can always look over.
I drew one up 2 months ago.
You drew the map?
Yeah, big one, brought it in. You were here? Oh,
I
you were-
couldn't see it.
Oh, yeah.
Do you still have it?
I do, I didn't bring it.
Oh,
There you go.
perfect. Yeah.
All right, thank you, Doug.
Thanks, Doug, I appreciate it.
Yep.
Okay, he's already got the layers on for you. Yep.
How do we
those are
get
the
from-
stacks, and then if you scroll down, land use.
I don't know what I did.
So, go to, my plan. Right there, land use. So this is what we want, we're gonna start. Sagle.
Oh, you can use your name.
Where do we find the key?
So click on zoning and land use.
What the colors mean?
So it'll be in the drop-down menu, or you can click right on the color, and then click on the arrow, and it'll tell you what, the off, so you'll left Yep, and there it is,
Over
rural
there,
residential.
right there.
blue.
Scroll
The
down.
green is gonna be your ag.
Now, to land use,
Okay,
get rid of the zoning.
okay.
There you go. Now if you zoom in here, go down to south. I think what we're gonna do is we're gonna start probably like right there. That's the Sagle Conoco, and
You
Sagle
want
Road.
Do you want us to click this top up zoning land use and then land use? Or do you click three on quick?
No, you did it perfectly. So if you want to see zoning, you just unclick land use and then click zoning below. If you want to toggle, and then click zoning right below it.
Yeah, I'm just interested in where it's.
I think land use only right now is the one we should probably start off with.
Exactly. Yep, so that's your land use designation,
And
and that's what we want.
Right at the Sagle Conoco in the
Can I ask a question
gray
about
area.
this now? Is this first little black part a quarter mile? I can't tell where the .75 is supposed to be.
Yep, it would be a quarter mile.
The first little
It
black
should be.
spot.
Every square is a mile.
Well, I'm looking at this,
Oh.
and if we're gonna,
Oh,
it is not
Yeah, it's one and a half.
that's how wide it needs to be.
That is
Just the way,
But if not through the.
No, it's not a
That's
quarter mile. You
mile,
have to
half
take a mile.
mile, 3/4
Gotcha.
mile.
Well, we see where 3 mile mark is, so the one, that 1.5 would be right there.
And it's 3/8 of a mile.
Yeah.
Each one of those small squares of black is 3/8 of a mile.
So, and we can also write where we approximately think it is, and then when I have GIS go in, I can be like, this needs to be a quarter mile from the highway or whatever it might be. So we can approximate things, and then we can get it straight on an official map.
But it's only between the two, what's the name of that road?
It's gonna be tough. Let's go with me.
I wish you had your map. I didn't know one.
Well, yeah, they want to be. All right, so we're here, so what would it from now?
Gun Club Road, it's only between the two Gun Club roads, right? The quarter mile? Isn't that what we decided?
Well,
No?
I mean, I wish it all the way up down the entire 95 quarter.
Well, but I think our set of lights is between the intersections of Gun Club Road.
I like this.
Yeah,
I think it needs to be more to.
I'm pretty sure that's what I read.
So it looks like what we've done.
No, it says the commercial hub will be intersection, but not center like this.
Okay, so the mix is commercial. So the light industrial, less dense, or more dense?
It's less than.
That's what I thought, but it should have come first. Mixed use commercial. And
Yeah, so that's the first one, but if it's too challenging, we can move on.
Well, I think what we ought to do is everybody have this gray square up here around the Sagle Conoco. That's our transition zone currently. We might as well start right in the heart of Sagle. I feel like.
Which one is that?
I'm sorry, Lane.
There we go.
That's what we're doing.
Yeah, you guys went through it. Yeah. There you go.
From like Monarch Road down.
This is, you're looking at it from the side.
Go to your layers real quick. Rural land. Oh, no, yeah, you're right. That's right. You just zoomed out more.
When you said a certain color around the second chronicle?
Well, it's the transition zone. What's currently the transition zone? The gray with the stripes through it?
Stuff right here.
I mean, that, I feel like is gonna be our, light industrial that we created. But I guess we need to decide, do we wanna keep it that size or make it bigger or?
I didn't realize,
I didn't realize
Okay,
what
so
Curtis
you
Page
need to
Road.
go down to the zoning one.
Yes,
How you doing?
that does. So if you were to click, now just because that's gray, that, to that Spade Road is actually suburban, if I remember right.
Not land use. Yes, it is, land use. Under zoning. And I don't- you have a whole lot of- I don't-
Yeah, and it's really relevant to the discussion, that's quite important for, yeah.
Well, again, that, just because that's down there doesn't mean that it's current, that can be current, or that currently can be industrial all the way to Spade. If you then click on zoning, you'll see that it's, yellow, which is suburban. Different than commercial.
I'm quick with land use. So, see, land use is current code, land use is complement, zoning is. Yellow is commercial. Yellow equals.
What they're talking about right now is
Okay,
zoning.
so here I'm teaching this whole thing now.
Streets, that's the problem.
Oh, you know what? Because you don't have transportation. Go way up to the top for transportation.
Well, you're talking about your,
Yes. Well, of course.
I'm right now, even just this.
You mean color line.
Oh.
Yep, you gotta turn on the music.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Layers.
Layers on layers. So I think you guys are on the right path. What was your one?
It's Sagle neighborhood, 10,000 square feet, 2.5 acres. Is the current. It's on the, that's the last page of the current one.
Okay, I was just gonna say, yes, so now you guys toggle back and forth between that, and then it really shows you what's going on.
This is Happy 95. It's right there, right there. And this is inside. No, I didn't.
Joe, were you able to toggle back and forth? So you got the gray on there, and
Oh,
then
the
if you
rural
hit
service center.
I had the grade knocked back to,
browns and yellows. and-
yeah.
Okay, yeah, okay.
Wow.
So within that gray stuff, you see where then the yellow suburban is, you know?
Yeah, and under the gray, the overlap goes for the commercial application through the Spring Road. Is what I seen previously.
That's all suburban.
On the gray one. Right now I got the yellow and the brown.
There's a stable rural residential right there smack in the middle.
What, now, which one are you talking about commercially going to the States?
When we have the,
Right, so they consider this whole thing, or not consider it, this is what they call transition. Milton would be able to explain this way better than me, but within the transition zone can be anything, right? Suburban, commercial, industrial, anything. So within the transition zone, here's your commercial stuff here.
right,
And then here's your suburban. So this doesn't mean that you can put a athletic center right there right now, just because it's in the transition zone, because that's zone suburban, you know. Change, right? Yeah.
that parcel right there's like on the, there's that would have been redeveloped. This
Oh.
Basically, this week.
Oh, really?
Mhm.
Huh.
Bottom of the whole Four Spade Road,
Yeah,
that's ITV's property. I run that I had a parcel, a half acre on the north, south side of that, 29 years ago. Oh, yeah, it's vacant property, state, he told me then, but they need gravel for the highway, they're all reopen that. That's what they're doing right now.
Wow.
They went in, took all the brush out of it, trees, you're ready to open that pit back up.
So I have a question on the ground.
Go for it, get us back.
Interrupt us.
Yeah.
So I was just reading the definition of industrial in your land use chapter, and it makes it pretty clear. It says the purpose of the Sagle light industrial areas to provide transportation-oriented commercial development in nodes along the US 95 system. So the node is intended to be a compact cluster of development near major transportation. So what if we figure out what businesses are along Highway 95, and we make this zone a quarter mile as a bubble to capture them? So that because this says that it can only be within a quarter mile of Highway 95. That's the only places that this industrial zone can be. So if we pinpoint where your businesses are, we can pinpoint where the zoning belongs, because development should already be happening there. Would that work as a starting point?
I'm okay with that, but should it be the businesses or should we identify also the major intersections?
That's a great idea as well.
Because whether there's businesses there or not, that's kind of where we want them to cluster, I think. Is that where, well, I think here are the nodes, that's what we're thinking about, is, where Sagle Road intersects with 95, so on and so forth. So, which ones, then we'll get into a debate about which ones we consider.
We're going to look at some property in split zone. How do you want us to handle that?
Having them split zone, prefer to not be split
We
zone.
prefer not to be split zone, but we're at the extent beyond the quarter mile.
So the problem is that, I mean, you can leave them split zone if you choose to. The problem is that changing it requires a full public hearing and all that stuff in order to change half the property.
Are there any currently split zone right now?
There's thousands of lots that are split zone.
Well, I'm just talking about,
Yes.
the commercial in the transition zone right now.
Yeah. Gravel pit is 105 and the commercial buildings are commercial. Split zone, transition.
Yeah, so how some of the other committees have handled it is they've said if a zone touches one of the parcels that they want to be a certain designation, they'll occupy it as that designation. So Sally did this, they didn't want to split zone anything. So you just move that boundary around the parcel line or across the section line.
Yeah. I agree with that, yeah.
And where we're looking at the comp plan down the road, we can identify areas that are currently used that could probably benefit from industrial zone now. Then we also need to look at expansion in the next 20 years. We're not just looking at taking commercial and go, hey, we're going to call this industrial, but we're looking for expansion. I think it's a great place to start. By existing.
Somebody said to me that this is how much, when I'm looking at this now, the one with zoning on it, how can I tell how far something is?
There's a measuring tool on the left-hand toolbar. It looks like a ruler right in the middle of your tools.
One in the middle.
If you click on that,
No,
It looks like a ruler. Old school people.
so if I pull the ruler out, I can do.
Click on that. Right. Trees in your area.
so can we start with the easy one? Gun Club Road, the other end of Gun Club Road. Mostly a development.
Right.
It's a quarter mile, though, not all of Gun Club, it's just a quarter mile from Highway 95 from that intersection to the other. Would that be a fair application? Or should that be something else?
So let me make sure I understand your suggestion. You're saying we draw a quarter-mile circle centered on both the gun club and 95 intersections? Okay, that's gonna leave a big gap in the middle, because they're more than a quarter mile apart on 95. I think you should do that,
Oh,
yes.
sorry, I misunderstood you. I think from here all the way down to here. So there, and then I don't know if we want it on this side of the road, but definitely from this intersection, a quarter mile out, like a bubble, like a line.
So you're talking, okay, so you're talking more.
Probably shooting
Yes.
myself in the foot here, but this piece does not need to be commercial, or this one, or any of these, so just so you guys know, we don't need to go that way. Probably shoot myself in the foot.
No, because I think your community also can be in places that is the way you guys wrote it. So we don't have to go, we can pick and choose.
Yeah.
Based on what's happening.
It's there.
I almost wonder if we should all look at this, the browns and yellows right now and see. I don't know if we, oh, it is on, it will be on that one. So what if, instead of each individually looking right now, if anybody had any suggestions, let's just start with the brown. The brown is our industrial, let's just say. That's called commercial right now, but for our sake, it's industrial. Are we happy with that, or do we want to fill 1 or 2 or 3 squares in, or should we just leave it like that? That's, I think, the direction we need to go. Get up, walk over there, point it out,
We have
see.
two yellow Sagle neighborhoods sitting right next to the highway there.
I think it's too big.
Do you think it's too big?
Yeah, we just did, a quarter mile, going down the Gun Club Road, past Ivan Invick's second parcel.
Right.
At the edge of it is a quarter mile, so the brown goes further than
Sure.
that.
Sure.
I know.
I think it ends right at this place, right?
Get up there and point it out.
I will.
I told you.
I'm doing it, boss.
So there's a quarter mile, I put a pin.
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly. There, this parcel here is residential right now, so are all these. So I think these should not be encompassed in the commercial. And I don't know who owns this parcel in here. That's a big piece of land. That could be all of a sudden, just- I don't think that should be into that commercial zone. You know, the stuff that's drawn, get up here, Pit Road, Frankie's property.
Oil Run Idaho Investment LLC, the owner of that. Right there,
This one?
yeah. Whoever that is.
I don't recognize it.
Okay. And I don't know what this purple is right here.
It's a residential, it's a rural service center.
Is that the trailer park?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we're looking at a current comp plan. Would you mind clicking on the current zoning? So take, for example, where Joe had just pointed, okay. it's-
Oh, are you saying go to, okay, yeah.
Well, I mean, we know what it's comp plans for, and then I want to see what it's zoned for. So let's say, for example, that Vandor, where it just ends at Index second parcel. And currently it's comp plan transitional, and its current use is residential. What are we gonna be doing with that land?
You're gonna be making the land consistent with the use, or the map consistent with the use.
Right.
The challenge with this is you want to look at it both ways. If it's currently used residentially, but it's designated transition, perhaps it should be designated residential. So if it's currently designated residential and being used commercially, maybe it should be designated commercial. You want to try, we had this discussion with Priest Lake earlier this week about the importance of looking at the uses on the ground and trying to get the map to match first the uses, then to address the 20 years down the road. Dawn's much better than I hope.
It seems to me that if we're gonna say that that's gonna be our commercial area, that shouldn't be rural residential in there. Because they're not rural residential if they're sitting right next to the highway.
I don't think your plan does that anymore, but we haven't drawn your map yet. So I think the way way you have it laid out, it kind of bubbles out. You go from industrial to commercial to community, then out to the rural areas. So you don't have commercial running 20-acre parcels. I think that's how you guys wrote it. But.
But we have, look at the two yellow zones up there, what are those? The one that's under, right next to Monarch Road on the corner there.
That's just that house that's sitting there.
There's the house.
Well,
there's-
yeah,
Oh,
well,
it's all-
yeah, so,
there's no
but
choice.
they didn't, their grandfather in, obviously.
Right.
They lived there for, that house has been there since I was here.
So if we made that commercial, does that do anything with their taxes? Does anybody know?
But-
You
Does-
get taxed on your
Tax.
use.
Okay.
Yeah, you get taxed on.
So, and
So,
then there's a.
Payne and Brown.
The other one down,
Probably won't change the
is that your property down there at Sagle Road there?
That's the trailer.
That's the trailer. That's the-
That's my concern.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
Yeah.
You can go less than 10, not more.
We're looking at zoning, we're looking at comp, we don't know what that guy, which is a problem. He might be correct, then they're using his house. Hey, you know, 30 years I'm gonna retire, I'm comp plan for this, and we have you have your future financial right of expectation. I don't want to take that. Right.
But it seems to me that if I own a piece of property and I've lived there, say, 40, 50 years, and I decide I want to sell it, I'm going to get a lot more money out of it if it's commercial, zone commercial than I am if it's zone residential.
That's correct.
And so that's a positive for me, not a negative. So, I mean, I don't think.
You're up, so on confidence.
Yeah, right, and so I don't think that we are saying, you know, what people know, isn't negative. It would be if it went the opposite way. Maybe.
Exactly.
So, so this is, you're right on top of the run. So, okay, so like you're saying, either of those yellow ones, so if they're not designated in the comp plan commercial, and in the future, the owner, the future owner says, I want it to be commercial. So then it comes in, makes an application for a comp plan amendment to a commercial designation following zone. Then staff would look at it, it says on the map, so forth, but then look at the definitions. And the definition of what they're asking for supports their application, fine. If it doesn't, then it says, no, you should vote. So we had a case a month ago now, rural area, and it was Ag Forest 1020 designation. And it was Ag Forest 10 zone. He had 20 acres. He said, well, my desire is I want to cut this into 4 lots and give 3 to my daughters, and my wife and I want to keep 1, so 5-acre lots. So he applied for comp plan amendment to rural and zoning change to 5 acres. Then they looked at, okay, so staff looked at, well, the map says it's Ag Forest 1020, but the definitions, descriptions of those better fit the 5-acre than the 1020 Ag Forest. So, the zoning commission said, okay, well, that fits. So that's the exercise, making these things so that, one, it does fit the land and the use, so that the description adequately covers the ground. If it doesn't, then it's kind of a free-for-all, and you could end up, and as was explained in a couple of hearings, to change a comprehensive plan amendment, comprehensive plan amendment that just says 1 parcel, and that's it, that's not considered a spot description or spot amendment. Zoning, yes, that could be considered a spot zone change, but if it's not surrounded by the others, here you're talking about the other one. So it's just, hope that didn't hurt more than help, but that's the challenge.
One of our, one of our concerns though was to narrow down where the commercial is gonna be in Sagle.
Right.
And if you start pulling property out and going, we can't have it here, we can't have it.
No, and that's the benefit of, and the other principle in it is somewhat, and it is written into the state language very loosely, about continuity of designations. So you don't have these little blurbs, sitting around there. It just makes sense that it doesn't, like I said, there's no such thing as a spot designation in the comp plan, but you can see them just because they're anomalies. Trying to eliminate that, why would an anomaly be, I suppose there's gotta be a case that it's real, but that's some purpose, something, but, like, yeah, I think the blue one in the middle of the Brown by Hardison Lane, that's the substation. So, that's an anomaly, but it's gotta be, so that goes away, and I don't know what the date can go away, I think it's gonna get bigger.
So when I look at this, I see there's a couple issues. One is up there towards the northern end of the ground area, we're more than a quarter mile.
Right.
95. So there would be a couple of properties out to the west that you would say would be changed, and maybe not favorable. Because
Are you talking more off the bottom from here?
further north, between them, right?
Yeah.
Like we were saying, these two properties at least, this is more than a quarter mile. This distance. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, we measured, right, pretty close.
Perpendicular to the highway, it's.
So these guys may have a gripe. If they were counting on being able to sell their properties as commercial someday, and you took that away from them, they might have a gripe. So that's a concern for me. I think these down here are a little bit over a quarter to encompass the whole property, but they're like 0.28. They're pretty close. So we maybe need to have a discussion about putting some language in of how we're going to deal with a property that's, touches that zone. How are we going to make the call which way it goes? I'd like to, we should minimize split zoning if we can.
Well, doesn't the quarter mile, even if it just barely, even if it just goes over onto that 40 acre property by 1 foot, then that's commercial, that whole 40 acres.
That's the rub.
Is that always the rule, or is that up to us how we write
It's
it?
up to you.
Right.
See if you can come up with some language.
Which that eliminates the spot zoning.
That was my whole point saying that. The description needs to
Or
be
not
tight
spot
enough
zoning,
so
but,
that somebody can inadvertently sneak into.
Split zoning is what I know. If it comes over and just touches that property, doesn't that eliminate the split zone? If this whole property then becomes
Well, but should
commercial or
it be,
urban or
should
rural?
it be that allowance should be there if it just touches the property? Can you come up with some language that says, and then if the guy wants to come in then for a complement amendment, then he's got to argue that it fits. Otherwise, no, but don't, that's up to you, that's what you suggest.
What is it? Does it matter what use they're being used for at the time?
I don't think so.
Well, no, the reason I'm asking is that big piece of property that are next to the one that you were.
This one here?
What is that being used for?
I don't know.
Is
It
it
used to
just
be,
vacant land?
yeah, they used to be Harbison's ranch.
That's why it says Harlingen.
They started a commercial little endeavor in that, over that double wide or something, I think, for a little while.
I mean, if we say if a piece of it touch, this is definitely a quarter mile to touch this property.
Right.
I just don't think it's gonna get.
Right.
And those-
Yeah,
What about
so
those
Doug,
four-
I
those
don't
four
understand commercial pressure. I mean, is there a lot of commercial pressure lately out there?
Well, there's been a little bit more than when we first started this committee, because this is now being developed right here,
Right,
storage.
right. Yeah,
There is a little, right here, there's a little coffee shop going in right here, I believe.
right.
Of course, we did this little thing here. This lot's been for sale, for sale, for sale, for sale, and for sale forever. That just sits empty. So,
I mean, it's
No,
interesting.
not right now.
As we talk to the cities, Kootenai has no room to, they have one lot left. It's development. Sandpoint has a couple lots left, but they can't decide which way it's up. And Ponderay has a ton of room to grow, but they don't have sewer and water. And so you want to look at how it's going to grow and look in the next few years. I just don't know that you're going to need a ton of commercial, but you do want to address it because you don't want to tie things down
Right.
and have a guy come in 3 years and
Right.
want to
change something.
So do we need to get rid of this quarter thing and then just come up here and each one of us say, no, we're good with this, or I'd like to see this one, or I'd like to see that one, and then vote on it that way?
That's why you got the back of your hand, okay?
Get rid of the quarter acre, or, yeah, the quarter mile, and just,
Well, sewer and water is gonna be our other limiting factor anyway.
oh, yeah.
Not there.
But not all, like your light industrial requires sewer water.
Yeah.
Right. And that is overcoming.
Yeah, it's being thought about, for sure.
So I don't know, if somebody wants to see more, come on up and point out which parcel you want, commercial.
Milton, I have a question for you. Out there from the Sagle plan, I was reading through it, trying to read the map and see where, how far off the highway are they going for where Brian Wood's thing is? That's quite a bit. How far are they saying out there?
Well, so they, I don't know, their transition designation is the entire Highway 95 within a quarter mile or half mile on both sides of the entire Highway 95. And then they designated a couple spots that were already being used as industrially used or planned to be in the near future. They designated those as transition. They didn't capture all of them, which we'll have to look at that, but they did capture some of the ones that are currently being, they just identified a couple spots that are currently being used that way. Left of this transition, but I think the oversight was the entire Highway 95. within a quarter mile, both sides.
Does anybody have any suggestions on the Brown?
I have a question.
I had a question, yeah. Somebody said that, well, if you wanted to change it, the zoning on it, you had to have a public hearing, but aren't 3 public hearings required as a result of, when you submit this? Isn't there supposed to be 3 public hearings? So that would be covered if you wanted to turn that one section over there into, I don't know, the yellow, is that residential? That somebody was pointing out that they thought it's residential now, it should be residential, and then if the person who has that property doesn't like it, they can say something at the public hearing, yeah? That's what I was wondering.
So I'll answer Don unless you want to. About, okay, so what they're actually doing is changing the comprehensive land use designation. They're not laying down zoning. So what they're doing is providing an opportunity for zoning to change. Now, to speak to your public hearing question, there won't be 3 public hearings. There'll be a workshop that this group hosts in Sagle, and then there'll be a workshop with the Planning and Zoning Commission where the 2 committees speak and work on that and present their plan to the Planning and Zoning Commission. And then there'll be a public hearing with the Planning and Zoning Commission to make a recommendation to the Board of County Commissioners. At that time, once that goes through, the Board of County Commissioners will also host a public hearing. So there will be 2 public hearings to change the comprehensive land use map. Zoning comes after, and that's very separate, very different than land use.
Well, I think they're mentioning the person who has that big chunk of land, what are they thinking? I would think that they'd have an opportunity to let you all know.
Yeah, there will be lots of opportunity, and that's their job, is to let their neighbors know and their community know that this is what they're suggesting for the next 10 years. So hopefully
Wait,
they hear this.
20, you said 10, some people say 5.
It's
Right,
whatever you want
right.
it to be.
There's some point in the future.
Some point.
The future land.
Future land.
It just depends on how soon you want to come back.
Just commit, at the rate we're going, we're just gonna keep this committee. Keep it going.
Pass it to the kids,
Nothing will ever change, but we're gonna meet every month.
It's already done, won't you?
How old is your son now?
Yeah, both of them.
So somebody earlier said light industrial goes where?
That was a quarter mile.
3. But 3 kids since they started coming to Sagle school.
Can we pull that map and go to the end of Longbridge?
No, it's sorry.
No,
To the end of Longbridge? And pull out a little bit. I mean, I know we just started Sagle, but I was just curious here. where
Look
we're
at all that suburban.
Yeah.
So then, when we're doing land use designation, I mean, when we're doing land industrial, are we saying from the Long Bridge to where? Or not? Because we, first of all, we have to decide our parameters.
So I want to just bring something up, and I hope it helps. So I'm going to flip the map. So this is zoning. This is land use. The red is rec, the hash mark is transition, and the blue is rural. Zoning, land use. So right now, transition allows for industrial, commercial, and all the other zones that are allowed in Bonner County. There's major opportunity sitting in your Highway 95 corridor right now. So you have to keep in mind, even if you make these decisions for land use, we are not making zoning. You're providing an opportunity for someone to come in and apply for a zone change to do something on their property. So as we make these decisions, we want to keep in mind that as you restrict this or whatever you decide to do, enlarge it, there's already this huge opportunity there. This is a giant area of transition, which in real time, most of us focus on zoning. We have no idea that's sitting under there. So we're creating opportunity. We really are planning for the future. So as we do this, you want to just keep in mind that even though you may say someone can come in for a comprehensive land use amendment or a zone change, if you say, you know, industrial zoning is allowed a quarter mile from Highway 95, they have to apply to go through that process. It doesn't mean that your zoning is going to change tomorrow if you're independent about it. It most likely will not change, unless you do something drastically different with your land use area, but I don't see it happening. So just keep that in mind. There's already major opportunity in the Sagle corridor. That is all transition.
Would you mind scrolling just a little south of it?
Absolutely. Same thing in the heart here, right by Gun Club Road. There's just that one section there along Gun Club Road that is not transition. So this would be the equivalent of you guys just going in and saying, yeah, all industrial right there, let's copycat it. It already exists. So I think it's good that you're picking and choosing where industrial and commercial can go, but just keep in mind that land use is different than zoning. Hopefully that helps.
And that helps with us not wanting to have just a swath of commercial or whatever from the south end of Long Bridge down to Duford Road. This is already built and expanding like what our vision is, which is that cluster or nodes, yeah.
I know it's so tempting to draw like all these squiggly lines and think about it like zoning, but I think if you keep it more general, it makes it easy. And just understand that the zoning map most likely will not change. All it is an opportunity that folks already have, which most of them are zoned R5 throughout the transition. Most of the folks out on Gun Club, which I know there's a few of you out there, you're probably a rural zone with a transition comp plan. Maybe, I don't know. So anyway, I just hope that helps a little bit.
What's the red, or is that red?
Yeah.
What's the red mean?
Urban growth area.
Thank you. That's what I was gonna say.
So one of the complications is we have some different names, or we've created some other land use designations.
Right.
So we'll have to see if they align with each other or not.
It's okay if they don't.
Yeah,
You
this
get to make
is,
it happen.
says urban growth area less than 2.5, or equal to 2.5 acres.
Yeah, so this is your community. You're replacing that with community.
But right above it in the transition, it's less or equal to 2.5 acres. So,
I have that idea.
So is anybody making marks on it?
Well, the problem is
This even what the music.
we need my map.
I was thinking.
By the time we mark all the map, we're not gonna be able to read it.
We need my map.
And it's okay if you guys shout out what you want.
See,
I can write it down and have a better map.
you know, first time I'm ever gonna say, I envy the Sagle 7. Because they don't have all the different zones like we do. This is the most probably complex part of this entire county. You know, that's the only part I'm jealous about Sally Valley, but hopefully when this gets before the commissioners too, that they realize, hey, wait a minute. Why put this all on the backs of the Sagle residents? We need to spread this out. I think Sally needs to get a little more lenient especially with their ACIs, and absorb some of this stuff. Why shoulder that on us?
Well, that's interesting. We are, the county is looking at the suburban areas and the ACIs. And we are putting a lot of pressure on the cities to step up to. We meet with them again tomorrow.
Yeah, I see that.
The county.
Step up to the plate is, what do you mean by that?
Just become more involved in what's going on in the ACI. Most of them, they may have planned for it, but they haven't planned on annexing and looking at it. And there are, and like I said, some of them are facing, their borders, and they're continuing to build up and allow smaller lots and ADUs on 5,000 square foot lots now. All kinds of things to increase density.
Area of city of that. Their area of city.
I know that this looks challenging because we're looking at the gray as this could be industrial. But if you turn this layer off, this is all residential. And these are all homes and developed. And do you really want industrial there? Is that right? And so this needs to be changed so it matches what's on the ground. And then identify the node that is commercial or that could be commercial, and go that way with it. It's just, it is challenging.
It seems like.
But it needs to be shrunk down here and then focus back here where it makes sense. Where you have good intersections, you have good widening of the, it's easier to put trucks and semis and stoplights. Whatever else.
Yeah, all right, Dave, no stop.
Yeah, I know, it was a joke.
Well, what would the urban growth on our map? And our land use.
Probably
plan?
something like community,
Yeah,
Sagle,
Sagle community.
yeah.
Sagle neighborhood.
Legal,
But those are less than equal to.
Oh, yeah.
Well, but a lot, I don't know, if lots of people have.
You did put a Sagle, they put it in here.
Some of the yellow. Yeah.
Yes.
Several, yeah.
I'm sorry.
That water.
One.
Is it
someone to take?
I had to think of like, this is under what, our definition of that. I mean, because our definition is, it's, within a quarter mile of water and sewer.
This is making the definitions look a lot easier.
10,000 square.
Yeah. Sorry. We want to pull up that map again. There's something that I wanted to bring up. When we look at this and we look at current designations, take for example, okay, this is transitional, right? Okay, I live down here. This is our family farm. This is where Pilch split his up. I think we still got this piece. I think just recently sold. You can't go commercial because there's no water sewer. If we call this whole quarter and all this stuff industrial, they don't have to have water sewer. Now we're going to see considerably more uses. You know what I'm saying? As opposed to rural 2.5 acre pieces. So to me, the most important thing is really identifying where we can really cluster this industrial. What makes sense here to cluster industrial? Identify that area and then go from there. But that is a concern to me that the way we have industrial defined, we don't have to have services. And I should have some services. But we do need to identify some areas to take through here that we can use industrial.
I like your suggestion earlier of identifying key intersections and going for comp plan purposes.
Well, that ties in
And
everything.
recognizing that the zoning doesn't necessarily follow that could happen down the road.
I actually think the zoning matches what's happening on the ground more than the comp plan. When you with the layers. So obviously, this is a neighborhood.
Right.
It's zoned suburban, but it's comp plan transition. So that kind of just happens, and it'll remain that way even if we comp plan for a little bit, outside of that.
So how do you go about getting that out of transition? Like, I don't understand, what do we do with this?
Different designation.
We're gonna make a new map, so this map will change.
We just,
Description and the designation.
You guys
I
can
mean, to
use,
me, that needs to be Sagle neighborhood.
so if I start to compile a map for you guys, I can kind of just take a list. We don't necessarily have to draw everything right away. Would it be appropriate to take that this yellow area and know that it should be Sagle neighborhood? We know that should be Sagle neighborhood, unless it should be rec.
Well, so I was gonna say, and this is a discussion that we're never gonna get through tonight, but, I think this is what to do with all the shoreline up on the edge. Because I'm not sure that should be neighborhood. I think maybe that might be different.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure that areas along Lake Shore like that should be, what do we have, resort? Is Bottle Bay and
Yeah.
Broadfield currently resort community?
It's gonna be
Yeah.
rec, yeah.
Yeah, so,
So can somebody really quick explain the difference between suburban and recreation? What can you do in a recreation zone that you can't do in suburban?
That allows for distances.
So our current, so we haven't written one for you guys yet, it's just a template that, it's one of the only land use designations we haven't talked about yet, but currently I'll just speak to what's in the current comp
Right.
plan and zoning. It does allow for extra businesses, so marinas, rec-based businesses along waterways.
And we just passed that, and, like, even hotels, not really hotels, but resorts, bed and breakfast.
Is there any,
The lots are smaller.
what do you call it when the vacation rentals? Is there the suburban, does all that allow for vacation rentals currently, right now?
Yeah, so the county allows for vacation rentals in any dwelling. that's
Any dwelling.
legal.
Okay.
Yeah, it's allowed by right, just like you're allowed to long-term rent. Like if you want to rent your house to rent it, you can do it. If you want to rent it VRBO, it's by right. You do need a permit to do short-term rentals because they can be disruptive.
Oh,
So that's why a permit is required for that.
Oh.
But it is allowed.
are they more sticky in the cities of those vacation
Oh.
rentals? Is that where I hear they're more sticky is in
Where
town?
my son's in the condo, I went to Dean Apartment Management, to see if he was in either sell his condo or VRBO. Dean Management says they will only allow 35 VRBOs in the city. Unless you're selling commercial. I was like, oh, they can't do that. 2017, Idaho Supreme Court case said you can't. Well, they can limit in regards to, what's the term they use? And I was like, you can't do that. He says, well, why don't you go take the application? I hate it.
Okay.
They claim 35 to see a sample.
That's
So they allow it by requiring that if you're not one of the 35, you have to live.
Right, you have to have the homeowner's exemption. I was like, what if you're VRBO it, you're not living there, how are you gonna get your homeowner's exemption?
Yeah.
My understanding of the city is that authority management, stuff within the city, you can't have 4 different tenants in the same month. It's like a 30-day window. Or they're there 2 weeks, 3, but you can't cycle the next tenants for the next month. There's a longer cycle. Right.
Wow.
How would you do it
Kind of destroys
Back to the resort, the Lake Shore stuff, my understanding, what I was told a month or so ago, to have a resort for any commercial services on the shoreline, you have to have a minimum of 400 lineal feet of shoreline. Is that correct?
Not through the county.
I was gonna say, we don't need to waste our time on any rec.
Yeah, no, that is in a regulation.
Yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of talk about of it anyway. It's not Bonner County anyway.
So I guess we would need to take a look at that shoreline. That is pretty heavily developed already, but I guess somebody can rip down an old cabin and put up a resort, I guess. If they want.
Well, that's what's been happening lot by lot. Somebody redevelops those old cabins, because predominantly those were summer houses. They're going full time and they're better, all the way down the river too. So,
Right.
so like Dave said, this is something, whether it's gonna be area by area or all the waterfront area of the county kind of fall in one. Whether it's a special situation in Sagle versus Priest River Old Town Committee, looking at their river frontage.
So I don't think that should, I made that comment, I just wanted to rail the discussion, I just think at some point we need to have a discussion about what that is. Other than that caveat, I would say, yeah, take that down.
I think we need to get back to this gun club, Sagle Road. We gotta start right in the heart, I feel like, so.
Isn't there a plan, some kind of basis to develop that? That already in that transition area? Put that
Yeah.
mini mart or mini mall or.
Well, yeah.
Oh, you pop a harvest in these?
Yeah, which is,
Yeah, it's already in there.
it's in transition.
Yeah, it's in there. Yeah.
I mean, that really does have a potential to be the center of the city. So,
Should we read our Sagle mixed use commercial right now as a refresher and then look at that map and go, okay, we're good, or?
Yeah.
I think we probably need to.
So would it uncomplicate things to recombine the industrial and commercial? This transition right now is everything. Is it too much to try to separate this as a land use and have it be industrial only or commercial only?
Didn't we already do? I thought we already.
You guys had them together and then they got separated, or maybe,
No, I thought
no,
we
they've
put
always been
them,
apart.
didn't we? Because we had.
I
Oh,
think, some commercial, like I said, requires services. Industrial doesn't necessarily.
we had Sagle light industrial.
And our idea was, see, commercial does not allow fabrication. We've got a bunch of places fabricated. We need to create industrial so we can have service.
Now
Yeah,
I-
so again, we're not creating zoning. So if we coupled them, you would separate them in the description. And you'd say, if you're industrial, you can, this is applicable for industrial zoning if you have this, this, and this, and it's appropriate for manufacturing or whatever it might be. If you are seeking commercial, it's appropriate in these locations and you must have sewer and water. So we can still discern that, but the market decides.
Well, and like I say, let's say what we're proposing, industrial and commercial, we comp plan today. Tomorrow, those guys that are gonna have to be coming in because of our compliance, have to come in tomorrow to change the zoning to what's coming.
So if you do transition, or so in this example, transition is what the county currently has. It allows for all land uses. So if you're less intensive, you would not need to come and change the zoning.
But we don't have an industrial.
Transition is our current industrial.
Okay.
So, go ahead. No.
So right now, somebody out there can come in and say, I want it zoned industrial. Right now, they can.
That's what I was saying, there's so much opportunity here already for these big blocks. You know, I mean, there's huge sections of Sagle already zone transition, which could be anything. It could be industrial, it could be commercial. You can come in right now and apply for a zone change.
See it more.
So why wouldn't we keep it transitional and then within that transition, we have our little Sagle mixed use commercial and our, this is what you don't need utility or water services for the industrial, but you can be industrial here. You want to a commercial building in the same, transition, you've got to have services, paved roads, blah, blah,
That was kind of my question too. Why can't we combine them somehow? And because it makes sense to do the quarter mile, half mile thing for a living space. But some of it's already in there.
that big old squares,
Yeah.
look pretty good.
So but I didn't know
Yeah.
how right now transition is all of, if you look at the zoning map, what's transition on that?
Well, that's transition up there.
The half
It's all the yellow, the pinstripe,
Well, as it-
All the yellow.
Yeah.
all the yellow is transition.
Yeah.
No, that's all residential.
Right.
Well, right, which transition allows for residential, commercial, and industrial.
It allows everything.
Everything.
Allows everything.
Yes. So what it does is it provides an opportunity. So if someone was living on one of those residential lots and they said, I don't want this to be my house anymore, I think this should be a business and I have full services. I know I'm comp plan for transition. I'm gonna go to the county and apply for a zone change. I'm gonna open up a fabrication shop. I'm gonna apply to be industrial. Now, it probably wouldn't fly if you're in the middle of a subdivision, but it's there, it's an option. They
That's
can
what I was
actually
just gonna
apply.
ask, is somebody on the 1 acre Jerry's Way lot wants to do what you just said. What do you look at to tell them no? You look at, I mean, because obviously you can't do that.
Yeah, so in
So
our.
how do we put that in here to make that happen?
Yeah, so it's already in your plan under public health and safety. So in natural resources and some of your other chapters, you talk about, especially in economic development, you guys have a lot of information in there about things being copacetic with neighborhoods and things remaining rural and, some health and safety objectives. And so what that translates to in the zoning code is that when someone comes in for an application and say, I want to have a machine shop in the middle of Jerry's Way, well, they can apply, but when we go to public hearing, it's really easy to demonstrate, well, that doesn't belong on this road, and your neighbors are gonna listen to you all day, you're gonna disrupt them, or whatever it might be. So there's a lot of things that come into play when you have an intense business trying to go in a residential neighborhood. So that's an extreme case, but they can apply is the point. So it's already residential, it's already been spoken for, but some of those larger lots, they may be R5 right now, they might not know that they can come in for a zone change and be whatever it may be, if all the check boxes get built. And they may not, be eligible for that once you actually get the law. And that's what you guys are here to decide. If we actually broke this down and we allow for the opportunity, is it appropriate there, and does it really happen?
So what we need to do is make an overriding designation that includes Sagle light industrial, Sagle mixed use commercial and Sagle neighborhood.
You don't have to do anything. It was just a suggestion so that you guys don't have to get bogged down with all these colors. Right now, you're trying to decide where commercial businesses go and where industrial businesses go. So that's a lot more challenging than saying they can both go here, and if you have these things, you can be this, and if you have these things, you should be this.
So
when we lay this,
we need another designation that overrides those three things.
you can just combine them and name them industrial, commercial, or whatever you want to name them. You can name them transition if you want to keep it the same, but yeah, it was just an idea. Nobody has to do this. We can keep it separate if you guys really want to dig in and be specific.
Well, if we're planning a new town someplace out in the middle of somewhere, it would work what we said. However, given that Sagle's been around for quite a while, it was really hard to go back and reinvent the wheel.
Yeah, you'll have a lot more colors for sure.
Ron?
I think we should consider the transition thing. It's already there. But
I
can
don't
we,
know how we can
so
mess
can we
with it other way.
Yeah.
Yes.
so leave our definitions in for the other part?
We just combine them.
Which ones would be combined? Light industrial, commercial,
Together.
and just those two, or?
Sagle mixed use commercial. Yeah, it would just be
Well, we have Sagle neighborhood in that.
Oh, and Sagle
section,
neighborhood.
so-
I think you guys should keep Sagle neighborhood separate,
Oh.
because I think that this map does have issues, and that we have transition zone over a neighborhood for an area that will never be commercial or industrial ever.
Oh, I see.
So that's the part of Sagle we need to fix.
So I would make a motion that we take that area that's transition right now and leave it as that, if that's the name we want to use, and I'm not going to call the name, and make that the area where we have Sagle light industrial and Sagle commercial. And we'll have to basically probably use the definition we already got, and it's probably good to combine it in that one area.
But
What
you
are
were,
we gonna do about the limits on ADUs?
let's get through this commercial thing first. You're saying leave that transition, but then I got just a little sideways there. You said we've got to separate the neighborhood. So the transition zone actually would shrink from what you're, not that we'd lose any commercial at all. It would just, we're separating the transition from Crystal Loop, Robin Drive, Jerry's Way, Mountain Ash, that type.
Going to the note.
Going to the nodes. Yeah,
For combining, I don't know if you want. Solution, but put it in there, it's gonna do that. That sounds like the most reasonable thing.
yeah.
And then taking into account all the streets. The nodes, and that way we can chip out the Sagle neighborhood from it. Correct?
Yeah, there's definitely some areas up here that should be transition. And then breaking this area out to be either rec or neighborhood. And we can start with one, and then as you guys enter into conversations, we can always swap colors. So we could start with rec, and then if you decide later on that it's actually more appropriately should be neighborhood, that's fine too.
So just to be clear, I wasn't including that area, because I think that's, most of that
Yeah.
should be
All
neighborhood,
neighborhood,
or whatever the right zone is.
except for,
Maybe,
so.
maybe along 95, some narrow corridor.
I was just thinking these, there's two nodes. There's this grouping road here where there's a few businesses, and then there's that, yeah, and then right at the Long Bridge, there's that little, I guess, node where you have a restaurant and some things happening. So those are the only areas I was thinking you might want a pocket of your commercial industrial
Yeah.
transition.
Yeah.
And then the
Makes
rest
sense.
would be, Sagle neighborhood,
Okay.
maybe.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
And I'll get it started so that you guys can pick apart maps. Because if we can get your colors on a map, then it's easier to be like, that doesn't belong in there, this should move or whatever. And I can fix it.
After all the round and round, so I think that makes the most sense right now.
All right, so,
And that's just the transition, the hash mark, or the,
Yep.
what you call it, color.
so that would be a transition bubble, and this would, or right here, and these. I don't know what
And then everything
Oh,
else
the
in
whole
yellow.
zone.
Is that what I'm telling you?
Yeah.
Now, when you say bubble, are we putting it out there mileage, or we're putting a bubble on that?
I was just gonna do the businesses,
No,
but just the first
Lot
line.
line, okay.
Yeah, just the lot, yeah.
Yeah, the challenge with that intersection is that intersection.
Yeah, no kidding.
And no
Well-
solution, well, there have been solutions suggested, but they don't. lend anything to
Yeah,
this discussion.
Crossbridge.
So what would we be doing with the current yellow that would go to what?
It would essentially stay yellow. It'd be
Yeah.
neighborhood.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'd be your neighborhood, which is like your suburban.
Right.
And then,
Because as we're discussing uses, Bill Jones distributors, that's still being used as a commercial building. And if we're gonna go, to uses, we should probably, now's the time to go ahead and change that.
oh yeah, and that's on a node, so do you guys want Bill Jones also?
Yeah.
That makes
Yep.
way more sense. That'll never be residential, so good catch.
Hard to forget about that.
What's across the road from that little gun shop down by,
Western Road.
People have.
Oh, that.
Roofing Road there, yeah. The
Yeah,
motel,
across from there. What's that?
That's
residential.
Well,
Oh,
it's,
That's the motel.
The,
But it just seems to me that some more of that should be commercial transition.
What is that?
well, it's already, that's actually already commercial.
yeah, it's our,
The blue part on the other side,
No, the brown right there where her cursor is, that's already, that's commercial.
I'm saying across the road from them.
Oh,
That's already residential.
Yeah.
that's commercial right
That
there.
little blue one, the little blue
The lot with all the
weird
fill.
triangle blue
Yeah, yeah.
motel, and the one up above, those should be, our church is commercial.
You're just gonna see whatever they want.
I'm being a little bit-
Yeah, and you molding us on something.
yeah.
Go ahead, Matt.
The other place is right there on that Flusher Road, what's called Roofing Road. That's where Flusher has his, back there. Yeah, that's probably in there as well.
Yeah, he's
Because-
fabricating.
Well, he's into cells, not just the one to the left.
To one left, right there.
This guy.
That almost rectangular.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's been a commercial, he's been selling metal roofing for years.
Showroom
Yeah, right.
It's kind of,
So you're
he has
right.
little displays, picture color.
Oh,
It's actually, I mean, I love it.
And be like, yeah, I
I
like
mean,
that,
these
I
metal
don't
fences
like
just
that,
different colors.
Cool.
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we can,
Well,
we can stay on the
He
zoning.
told me to keep maybe. He knows.
Where there's actually, little, little plots for houses. And if there's not, why can't that be part of the transition zone? I'm just looking at the blue above the motel there, that, and going north, up to the next.
That's just a little
yellow.
wetland area. You can turn it
That's,
to
Forever to fill.
Yeah, they've been trying to fill that and then it goes to straight uphill.
Yeah,
Across from Bottle Bay Road is just
Other side of Sherwood's and just climb.
straight uphill. There's, nobody's gonna put a,
So it wouldn't
convenience
be
store up there.
commercial.
yeah, steep. Yeah, I think we need to.
So
We're
that
making
should be,
progress.
I feel like that's a big one. I'm only one guy, but it's a hill, yeah.
Oh, get those existing uses, good idea.
Yep.
Let's go, zoom in, go from Bottle Bay South and just start picking away uses as we know them, whether we use it along Highway 95 corridor.
You want me to leave the zoning layer on, or is it?
No, just, no, the way you have it.
Yeah, the way,
You want the natural
The brown,
resources?
yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
So, there are interesting uses in there, lots and parcels. One of the issues is almost all of those parcels have direct access on 95. There's no alternative. How, and the state hasn't figured out what to do between the 5 lane and the long range. It's just, the old EIS from 99 said just make it a 5-lane road.
All the way to the Long Bridge.
Yeah.
And what do they get, just station EMS there permanently?
Yeah. So we started addressing that and didn't get anywhere, but there's no way that that's going to be future developed with direct access in the 95.
Yeah.
So there'll be some frontage road system in there to some extent. So there's the opportunity to have commercial or industrial along the frontage roads. But as well as, even if they are residential lots, like down there, the ranch and the farms and everything, they're still gonna be as agriculture residential. So they're still gonna have to have direct access onto that frontage road, which then somehow there's gonna be more interchanges on 95, north of Gun Club Road. But it's a bit of a
Well,
pickle.
one of the things that we haven't looked at before when we were talking about land use was wetlands and where they are. And I just clicked on natural resources and wetlands, and you can see where there are wetlands along Highway 95 here. And so we might not want to, use
Normal maintenance.
Yeah, we were headed south.
Yeah, we're headed south on 95, so let's stick with that with, Matt and Mark were talking about the.
Well, and I have one question for you. Because when you get down to my dad's gravel pit on Pit Road, if you actually click that parcel, maybe without all the years on it.
Want that change?
I don't think, well, that's a question for you. On that one south, just south. Okay, click on that place. And you see that's on one piece. It's already split zone. Now we're discussing about not wanting to do split zone, so the use. It's gravel pit. Gravel pits. They can be operated in a rural zone, and they're not permitted outright to do that. The gravel pits are actually an industrial use, including blasting, drilling, and processing. It's categorized as an industrial use. So if we're gonna go on uses on these other parcels, should we also go ahead and look at those gravel pits and make those industrial as well? Including ITs and ITs and and the one down there, Shelf
Counties.
So I don't know how to tackle this one. There's the whole asphalt plant thing, and I don't know where they're at with it. I personally don't really care if an asphalt plant goes there. But if we change that, what is that gonna do to that fight that's going on right now? Or is there one? I don't even know if there is one anymore.
They can move that asphalt in tomorrow.
Okay,
And it's not gonna change that. The current ordinance change recommendation is leaving the batch plant as a conditional use. in the- So that's not gonna change.
That was the only issue, it was, right?
Yeah, I was just, and that's what attention.
so this recent thing that was going to public hearing but then got canceled, is that,
It's back on it.
oh, it is back
Yeah,
on.
November 3rd.
So what is that?
It's
I haven't looked
it's
at
just an ordinance change. It's just an ordinance update.
That
It basically grandfathers in all existing gravel pits. For sure and for good. And then it requires a conditional use permit for new gravel pits and a conditional use permit if you want to put a batch plant in a gravel pit.
By batch plant, you mean either asphalt or concrete?
And by grandfather in, does that mean you're changing the zoning?
No, we're
Or
not
it's
changing.
just saying it's okay where they are?
Yeah, because there's, 95 gravel pits in the county. We went and chased them all down and.
And you don't have the ultimate vote.
What other places, businesses do we have along 95 that we, I like how we're kind of cherry picking what these businesses are, to make sure. Because I know as soon as I drive home, I'm gonna drive by 5 home.
Yeah, so we started Peters.
Yeah.
But he's in the transition.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's already in there. So is there anything just north of that tip of the transition
That
zone?
spot of blue, north of.
Just a church.
Just church?
That's the substation.
Yeah.
Blue one right.
Oh, yeah,
Right
there's
there.
a
Right there, yeah. And the church is on a conditional use permit. So that's one of those lots that's, it only has access to 95. So at some point it'll go away and something else, who knows, if the highway expands, maybe the department will buy it, who knows? Because it's stuck. No way to get access to it.
I like the look of that blue in there. It goes to this node thing that was brought up years ago, kind of what we started on. I don't know if there's any reason to make any more transition, at least from that northeast corner of that one.
Yeah, take a look at the terrain, you got all the farmland on the east.
Oh, the train.
You got terrain on the west,
Yeah.
it goes up sharply. Not real steep, but it definitely, I mean,
But
95 right there, where the 95 symbol is, that's the beginning of a big fill that was put in the 50s.
So what's everybody want to do with Lynn's guys? I guess that would be our next.
I heard they're being closed.
No, show well. You're opening up 24/7.
24/7, 365.
Now you got the pit, and then Southside's land app site, and the room. Is that residential?
Was that industrial
Or the-
manufacturing?
This was, I don't know, it's a public service site. Is what it is.
Do we need to do any of those?
Well, right now, it's, what's the designation? The designation is rural, okay, and the zone is
R5.
and that's on that site, on those two parcels through industry as well.
Yeah, I don't know anything about it. I just know that there's a lot of controversy, so I don't really care what. anything.
If you guys were to ever think of having an industrial park for the county, has anybody looked at, where would you put it, close proximity?
We talked about it all the time. And we looked at a couple of properties in zoning and industrial. And everybody, the word got out that we were doing that, and it just went south. Here comes this little bit.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
So,
Okay, yeah.
So we, but in an industrial park, there's a couple of locations in the county that we look at. When you talk about the gravel pit, you need to look at it as a gravel pit, but you also need to look at it as its future, because it won't be there forever. They're almost well played out. Right?
Yeah, would that be better as a residential neighborhood in the future? I guess we have to look around it. What?
Yes, that has the
Homes in the gravel pit.
Yeah.
Turn into a big lake. Yeah.
And so I've got rules about how far down you can dig, you have a big pit, and so on. Okay.
Reclamation.
Well, if somebody, whoever just said it's not gonna be there forever, it could be if you could. go down.
Well, forever, at the pace Dad's been taking material, the last 4 years have been record years. We were visiting last year, right? And he said, at the pace we've been going last 4 years, we got another 76 years.
Jeez. Seriously?
Yeah,
Wow. Anticipating keep it moving
just keep moving. And
into the hill.
yeah, and part of it, like where the asphalt patch plant would go, it's kind of all flat and level. Well, and that helped me out here because you wrote the reclamation plan on some of Dad's stuff. Where it's flat and leveled off, it's not necessarily reclaimed, and you never ever have, as long as you're still operating speed, you never have to go in and reclaim it. But if there ever was an area that's off the highway that nobody can see at a little industrial park or see buildings or uses as an industrial park, that honestly got to be replaced.
It's
And unlike a Sully committee member, I will not make a motion that day. Nor will I vote.
So the area right there at Shop Road, you've got, used to be the welding shop, and new welding shops there, the cabin companies there, the auction used to be there, behind there, the R&R Center. It's an industrial. De facto industrial.
It already is, yeah.
But that's in the transition.
It's in the
right?
transition, right, and then where let's see, the siting for the batch plant was gonna be, see where Pit Road is north-south, that was to the east of that, right? Yeah. So, it makes sense that would be the industrial park.
It could work there. I mean, I agree with Mark, it's one of the advantages is kind of tucked out of the way. You did put some back there. I'm curious, just to ask where, the other locations north of Long Beach, the other sort of ideal industrial park
Well,
locations you were thinking
So
about?
the one on Samuels Road has a rail
Oh,
connection,
yeah.
and then there's one out in Fay that has a rail connection.
Well, the Colbert.
Over?
Yeah, industrial park. It's already laid
Oh, yeah.
out and everything very
Yeah.
well.
Yeah, and
I
there
mean,
is.
those make more sense to me than this side of Long Beach, but.
But it depends on what type you're looking at. I mean,
Yes.
there's lots of small manufacturing places
Yeah.
around here. It's impressive.
They don't need to be in a big building.
Familiar
Oh.
with Priest River's industrial park.
Priest River
Priest River
has,
Industrial Park, it's small businesses, it's startups, that's where Aerostat is. The timber sled companies out there, it's neat stuff. It doesn't have to be bowling. They're not gonna, they don't even know what they're gonna do.
it's way it clusters on this.
But all these places that already exist, that you guys are calling industrial, match our definition.
That's the difference.
you know. Because I think, the only thing I can think of that maybe wouldn't, and I don't know how much we address that, is, emissions that would bother people next door. If they're, if we have living spaces nearby, that might be, but I don't know if we address that, we address that commission.
I don't remember. I want to say we have an overall policy in the natural resource chapter, but I'll have to check.
Yeah, I think we do.
Okay, yeah.
And I think we should.
They should be conducted in a manner that protects the health, safety, general welfare. of the
But
residents.
that still leaves a lot of opportunity open for businesses that aren't noisy, and don't create a lot of pollution.
Is that covered, you think?
Health.
Do you think it covers that, what I just read?
My recollection is that it does. I'll maybe make it, get on my soapbox a little bit, it's one of the other things that I suggest. Go back and
Oh,
Well, I-
yeah.
We wrote charter it 2 years ago.
Oh,
definitely before we even.
I'm not sure it reads as a coherent document anymore, so.
I'm sure everyone will have to let us think that we want to go over
It
again.
says you're supposed to be protecting health, safety, and welfare.
Can we go back up to the brown?
Black smoke coming out of your nose.
This is exhausting, I don't know how you.
So we're okay, so we went up north, stopped at the church area, we're
Yeah.
okay, coming down south, we're okay with the
Right.
blue.
right.
And then,
Residential
yeah,
community. And then here, we're still indecisive about extending transition in the pit. You guys are still needing to decide on that?
We still have.
I've kind of voiced mine, I haven't heard from these. Yeah, so questions, other guys.
So the question is, we've decided above here on Highway 95, and then we got to this area, and we're still feeling a little indecisive, so what's the choice? Do we extend that transition zone to include the pit, which is an industrial use? And we're trying to identify businesses that are industrial and commercial? And if we don't, what is it? Right?
Well, Mike, can it only be on one side of the highway?
So if it's, I'm sorry.
Because it doesn't make sense to have it on the side of the one way where that neighborhood is in there, but it might make sense to have it on the other side of the highway.
yeah, we can have
On the
it
west
wherever
side.
we want.
Let us kind of map your ideas and bring it to you next month, but let's go down.
So one more question on that real quick. If we put the other half of the pit in transition, it still stays rural
It does,
now,
yes.
and then Frank would have to,
They'd have to apply for a rezone.
Yeah.
Let's put it, then just to look at it in the
yeah,
map,
yeah, I
and then we can go from there.
So we have went
I'm
from
really
Long
interested
Bay
in the
south.
other.
I like that.
South.
Yeah.
So south.
Bottle Bay south to,
I'll go back up to.
Stay right here.
Yeah.
Bottle Bay south to,
I think we're gonna draw it with the circles like we've talked about, or the shapes. I think we're gonna draw with the shapes like we talked about. And so we're gonna keep moving down and look at this other end of the area. Because the gun club intersection on that other end, is there commercial down there?
Yeah,
well, you got-
pretty close there.
Beyond it, Hester's Place,
There you go.
Hester's, the old car lot.
Underwater.
Yeah.
The lakeside, that's where you buy flooded vehicles.
Flooded vehicles.
You get them cheaper.
What was that?
Yeah, because.
Oh.
Yeah, almost.
Yeah.
That was that one time, it was like.
So, yeah, you have, there you have the fire station up, and then you have the Captain 95, and then the Conoco.
Rock shop,
Yeah.
rock shop.
Granite.
Which that's all currently in transition.
That's all transition.
Yep.
But that intersection, that gun club, is there anything on that corner?
Right here.
Just the
The fire station.
Fire station.
No, that's all, that's that big parcel.
Oh.
Yeah.
No, nothing south of it.
There's a lot of water in those trees.
Yes.
There is.
Yeah.
A lot of water.
Yes.
Right there's a lot of water.
Forested wetland.
And it's rural, so that makes sense.
That-
Larger acreage.
By the way, that forested wetland is a exhibition point for any of the biologists around. They point that out as one of the best forested wetlands in the area.
Kidding. Wow.
Just because it's diversity.
Oh.
It's so rich,
Wow.
and it really exemplifies the definition of forested wetland.
Maybe that's why they're
So-
logging it again.
Yeah, they're logging,
Yeah.
they're actively logging it.
Yeah, they're
Yeah.
actively logging it.
Are they just on the north part, or it's just that whole thing? Most of
Uh,
it.
That's southwest corner.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, they want kind of moving through the trees.
well, it used, yeah, see where the old road used to be?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Gotcha.
So like where Hester is down there, Don,
Yeah.
and then like I said, the car lot, I don't know if the car lot's still close, but Hester,
Yeah. He's residential, I think.
well, yeah, he is, but is that what she's saying? I mean, if we're looking at use,
Oh, no.
No, that's,
No, that's the,
Oh,
that is, that's,
I think that's the car lot.
Oh, that's the one I thought you were
Yeah.
talking about,
Yeah.
yeah.
no, that's Sagle Service Center. The big white area there is
Yeah.
further southwest.
Further south.
That,
That's
yeah, those
Hester's.
two lots are Hester's. And,
so what was it you're thinking that? I don't know. I mean, if we're going to use, I know he has a bunch of trucks and everything, he does, camping in there.
rock storage. and-
Yeah, he does.
You know,
That's anybody's
it's an
rule.
industrial site.
I know.
So. I wouldn't do that.
So things stay pretty
Well, no, it's
rural.
practically,
Yeah.
South of them.
I don't really see a reason to go south of Gun Club, in my opinion.
I agree.
for grins and giggles, do go south just to make sure we're not missing something.
Well, that's true, yeah.
But there, because there is that where the lawnmower place was.
Yeah, that's still,
That's
and then the
gone.
storage.
Yeah, the lawnmower place is gone. Wasn't that weird that wood, custom wood or some sort of wood place
Yeah.
for weeks?
Two
Built
weeks.
that shop and then they're gone. I installed the internet there
You know,
and you had all this fancy wood from
Oh.
across the world and then all of a sudden they're gone and it's for sale and then it's sold again, just like that. Or it's for sale,
don't know.
I can't remember. Maybe it's.
So what is that?
It's interesting.
Commercial.
If and when ITD's plan goes through an interchange of Duford Road and that frontage road goes all the way up and through that, where the shop is, the storage in the shop, up to that road that goes across the wetland over to that rock pile. And that's it, because it's too narrow in there to do anything else. So that's all on the frontage road. That may have, no, it's not, that might just influence what's going to go on in those properties.
So it looks like there's already commercial zoning down there, and then below that is the transfer site. So we could do a node of transition, commercial, industrial, whatever you guys want to call it, in that section north of Beaufort, up to where the commercial zoning ends. I don't know what's going on that parcel.
Well, we can't touch south of Duper. It's not in our plan.
No.
Okay. South of Duper,
Stop there.
this light green,
Yeah,
it says that we're down.
area
Oh, yeah. So
we did? Oh, we did use the area code. It's amazing what you forget after 3 years. or zip
Right up
code,
to
yeah.
Jewel Lake, is there anything out that way?
Yep, so it does go down just north of.
That's right, we did change that, didn't we?
So you include the
Well,
cemetery.
We do need to reread our document. Good night.
Oh, yeah, there's some industrial and commercial down there too.
Yeah, you got encoder, yeah.
Coder.
Oh, encoders in there? Yeah, shoot. Well, there goes another 2 or 3 meetings.
We'll draw some, we'll put a map together.
I'll try.
You guys got some pretty good ideas, I think, from us today.
Thank you.
All
Yeah.
right.
Well, those 3 purple ones are commercial.
I do like these maps, but.
Old one, the problem is, we thought we could just get a little thing and go, yeah, and we can't do that.
Well, at least we got me.
Line all those areas
Hey,
because.
wait,
We can put something together. I can try my best to get that together and then give you guys a starting point.
A series of maps.
At least we know we have to combine 2 land use designations. That's a good thing. Help simplify the map quite a bit.
Is this one down, is this development in your
That's a zip code area.
that's always down for?
Yeah, it's the zip code boundary. You guys, the zip code,
Oh, that's.
yep.
Well, Dave, it was a pleasure.
Yes, it was.
We don't
Yeah.
have to accept this.
I think it's too late for that.
was there another opening, did another opening fill too?
There were guns,
Brian.
Who?
Brian Daly.
Oh, Brian Bailey came out.
I think so.
I just, was it you guys that was in the newspaper today about the whole North Boyer thing?
No, that's the city.
That's the city.
It's a city.
Okay.
Very interesting.
Yeah, I
Well,
think it's an interesting conversation.
Okay, sorry. Sorry, sorry.
You did? No, I didn't.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
That's for one explanation.
Doug Gunner will second.
Okay, all in favor?
Still coming.
Aye.
This is really the third elk season.
Okay, thank you, we'll see you guys.
We've been meeting.
Yeah. Yeah. I've literally had 3